Welcome to this special event with two powerful women and renowned Black activists, Susan Burton and Dr. Alice Green. This conversation is being pre-recorded as part of a major October symposium in New York's capital region titled The Time for Reckoning, Confronting Systemic Racism, Seeking Justice, and Reimagining Society. The symposium is being co-sponsored by the Center for Law and Justice in Albany, which Alice founded, and the New York State Writers Institute at the University of Albany, where I'm the director. We're grateful to the two of you for doing this. So welcome, Susan, all the way from California, Alice in Albany. We can say we're coast to coast with this symposium.
We definitely are.
So let me briefly introduce our guest. Susan Burton is the author of Becoming Mrs. Burton, From Prison to Recovery to Leading the Fight for Incarcerated Women. She's the founder and executive director of A New Way of Life. She operates a network of safe and comfortable homes in South Los Angeles and a reentry program for formerly incarcerated women. Since 2007, she has provided household supplies to more than 3,000 formerly homeless people, as well as safety and support to more than 850 women and children, including reuniting more than 150 children with their mothers after they were released from prison. Her work has been honored with numerous awards, including CNN Top 10 Heroes Award, a Soros Fellowship, and many others. And Dr. Alice Green founded the Center for Law and Justice in Albany, New York in 1985 as a civil rights organization and to assist formerly incarcerated people with their reentry back into the community. She's a doctorate in criminal justice and 3 master's degrees from the University of Albany. She's a frequent lecturer and author of the book, Law Never Here, A Social History of African-American Responses to Issues of Crime and Justice. So we're very honored to welcome Susan and Alice. The 3 of us were together 2 years ago in Albany. Susan came to talk about her memoir, and I also had this very powerful experience. Susan made extra time to go visit incarcerated women in Albany County Jail who were battling opioid addiction. You had a powerful 90-minute session with them, gave them a copy of your book, which is really a message of hope. So I'll start with a general conversation, then I'll step aside, rather a general question. So you've both been advocates for a long time, many years, for civil rights, for racial justice. On May 25th, the killing of George Floyd by Minneapolis police seemed to change everything in this landscape and this national conversation. How did it change your work? And then where do we go once the demonstrations and protests have moved on, if indeed they do?
Yeah. Well, I would like to start out by asking Susan, since we've both been activists with people who are incarcerated, that's a population that we are not really hearing from since the killing of George Floyd. And I know there's got to be a lot of concern that's registered inside those facilities and also with people who are in treatment. So I wanted to ask Susan what she thought was going on when this whole incident with George Floyd happened and a number of other killings of particularly Black men and of course Breonna. Are you getting any sense of what is happening inside those facilities? Are people finding any way to express their anger, their concern? And I, as an activist, I worry that we're not connecting to that population, which is a very important time for us to do that.
So, I wanna kind of encompass both questions that are really, really related. When the killing of George Floyd happened, it triggered something that should have been triggered long ago. I don't know what made the masses respond quite like they did. I think about the triggering point for Martin Luther King is when everyone seen the dogs seeked on Black people who were peacefully marching. So they saw this whole view of the attack on Black people. So much like George Floyd, they saw the policemen march him from the car to the sidewalk where he was going peacefully. And then all of a sudden, this man casually puts his knee in his neck with his right hand in his pocket and chokes the life out of him. So we were in the midst of COVID during that time, and folks were sheltering in place across the nation to try to avoid COVID when this man choked the life out of him, and there was no avoiding that for him just because he was a Black. So uprising, and it snapped the attention of what have we been doing to Black people, not only now, not only then, but throughout history. So all of the facts became very, very real for America, from mortal infant death to the incarceration rates, to the rates of killing, to, just on and on and on and on and on. But this has been on and on and on and on since we were brought to this land. But I think it came full circle and choked up people to say, what role have I played in this? And how can I right my wrongs? And so we had the masses of allies walking, standing with us, and it kind of turned us on our heels. One of the things that I realized also happened is that people weren't doing busy work because they were sheltering in place. So they had to sit with this. They were sheltering because of COVID, and they had to sit with this. So I guess it was like a perfect storm. So here in California, around the folks that are incarcerated, we know that you can't uprise in jail because you'll get stomped and choked out there too. There was a couple of weeks ago, some men in the county jail went on hunger strike around conditions of cleaning, conditions of confinement, conditions of not being able to receive their mail, and so forth. So that was a peaceful protest, and someone contacted me as a civil brand commissioner. I'm able to go into the jail at the drop of a dime and go and inspect. So I went in and talked with the men, inspect. We helped them and watched them open their mail, helped them get their mail and watch them open their mail and address their concerns. But the conditions that people are confined in during this COVID is a disaster. And the fact that no institution, no federal, state, or county jail has any type of emergency management or evacuation plan in place speaks to our negligence as a society to hold corrections folks and jail folks accountable, corrections official and jail officials accountable to say, what are you going to do with our loved ones? What are you going to do with the people that we entrust you to hold for a period of time? I mean, I think that some people, some places have these emergency evacuation plans for dogs, for horses, for their cattle, for their whatever, but we don't have one for people.
Right. And also another piece of that is that at least we're experiencing here in New York is it's really affecting their families so much. A lot of people are dying inside those facilities, and the rest of the community does not realize it. People are no longer able to visit their loved ones.
Yeah.
This has an impact on not only their own personal feelings, but the whole family. You know, we tend to think that someone who's incarcerated is a separate person, you know, but they have connections and ties to the community like we all do.
Yeah.
And so I think that's causing a lot of distress inside the facility. And even when family members are able to visit these facilities, like in New York, they could take, you know, some of these are located so far away from the city that they can take 5-7 hours from one of these places in New York City just to get to the prison, and you're not guaranteed a spot to visit your loved one. So there's just a whole bunch of problems you know, that are affecting that population that the rest of our community does not even think about or realize.
Yeah.
So I'm really concerned about that.
Right. When you incarcerate an individual, you also incarcerate the family.
Exactly.
It affects the family. It affects the children in the family. It affects that community. You know, they did these studies where they called these blocks $1 million blocks, where $1 million cost had been extracted from just a block on the cost of incarcerating people within that block.
Mm-hmm.
And so where does that leave that block? You know, really, really, really stressed, strained, and highly harmed. And we have to do better. We have to change the way we think about and use incarceration as a tool for safety, for safety for our communities, for justice for our communities, for the health and well-being of our communities.
I agree. In response to Paul's question, you know, and us, the two of us being activists and been activists for a long time, when we saw what had happened with George Floyd and then the reaction following that, we started to think more about, you know, how is this affecting us as advocates? What do we need to be doing that we are not doing now to really bring about the change? Because this was, I think most people saw this as a, you know, different in terms of the movement and the involvement of people. And we had been, I know at the Center for Law and Justice, talking about reform. How do you reform the system? But this, I think, made us realize we got to transform the system. We've got to look at it differently and work on trying to make sure that we redesign not only police departments, which is what we're doing, at least we have been mandated to do here in New York from the governor's executive order, but to think about how do you transform these systems? How do you work towards addressing white supremacy, which is, of course, a part of everything that we see and do, and how do you actually get the whole system to change in a way that it protects our community rather than destroying the people who are in that system?
So, you know, Alice, I would be, you know, we have folks that say the system does what it was designed to do.
Exactly.
You know, and, you know, as a Black woman out here who is the protector and the healer and the cook and the breadwinner and the warrior and the, all of these things, in this moment, I've come to a place to say, it's not all my responsibility. And, I'm not going to wear that or carry it or hold it, that it's my responsibility to take on the monumentous task of changing everything. It's people's role and responsibility to create an environment where we all share in creating a safe and just community and a safe and just world. I can't wipe out your racism. That's something that you have to do yourself.
Exactly.
So I want you to actually reflect on, what more can we do? We're doing everything that we can do. And it's not to say we step back, but I don't take on the responsibility of having to make everything right. I do what's just and right in my work. I work with compassion, empathy, smarts, and, creating and doing what I can. But it's other people's role and responsibility to create a shared safety across this nation, not only locally, in their communities, but connected to where we have a nation that's safe and a system that's just.
Is it your sense that we're at a different moment and a different place when other people besides, those of us who have been trying to do this work for so long, are we at a place when they realize that it's everybody's responsibility?
I believe that we are at that place and we're at that peak. We're at a peak where it's a tipping point. But, what I also know from history is that it reinvents itself, this system of oppression, capitalism, oppression, racism, all of this stuff. It reinvents itself. So, even though we're at the peak, stay ready. Stay ready, Alice, of a new birthing type of caste system or system, racialized system, because, it always reinvents itself.
I think that's what Michelle Alexander was saying in her book.
That's
yeah. Unless we really care, love, people and see everybody as an equal human being, we might solve one problem, but it's going to come back in a different form.
Yeah, just don't see my skin color, see my humanity, see the potential that I hold for the world, for the community, for my family, see me. Yeah, you just named it, that is what Michelle writes about and talks about, how it reinvented itself. And I want to say that it wasn't all doings of white folks. Black folks participated too. All the tough on crime and the religious institutions supported it too. So it wasn't, the Baptist church, the Protestant church, they supported what was designed, this design of mass incarceration and the creating of this caste system. So we just can't, and it's going to take all those places to transform it, as you say.
Yeah, but do you see, I come from this perspective that in this country, we're socialized, both blacks and whites, socialized to believe in white supremacy. So therefore, it becomes very difficult to separate, what is going on here. And that's why we have to understand what systemic racism is, because it affects not only the institutions that we're dealing with, particularly prisons, but the legislation that's, designed to deal with a population who might be come in contact with the criminal justice system. It's in our policies, so we can make all of the changes that, we think we need to, but unless we understand what we're dealing with in terms of a system and a history, that it seems, even more difficult to try to bring about the change that we want.
So I know that it will not be done. I don't know it, but I don't believe that it will be done legislatively. Mm-hmm. I think this whole nation, this whole world needs to go into a deep healing, deep healing. I'm actually in the midst of reading a book called My Grandmother's Hands.
Oh.
And in my grandmother's hands, it talks about white body trauma,
mm-hmm.
black body trauma, and blue body trauma. And all of it's different, but all of it can be healed. And I think that, I'm working on it for my own body trauma, mm-hmm. for my own black body trauma. And so much, healing is a lifelong journey, but so much and so many layers have been peeled away while I'm reading and digesting the lessons and the exercises in the book, My Grandmother's Hands.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this is a soul conscious thing. And, it goes back further for white folks than it does for black folks, because the trauma that white folks was a subject to and was escaping, that they brought to this nation, and then the black people that they brought and they inflicted their trauma on, picked up that other level of trauma. So it goes back. It's very, very deep, and it almost goes. It's not almost, but it gets transformed even in our DNA. So it's going to take a deep healing if we're ever going to get to a place that that we can live in the world and see one another's humanity. So I'm only responsible for me.
Mm-hmm.
I am responsible for your healing. That's your journey. That's personal. I am responsible to share with you whatever I can, but it's up to you if you pick it up. So it's up to the white person if they pick it up. It's up to the Jewish person if they pick it up. But it's really, really deep, and there's no magic wand, it didn't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure we're not going to do it overnight, but we have to start somewhere.
Right. And through all of this, I don't know where we will be in 10 years or whatever, but, and I see.
Wait a minute, girl, I don't know where we're going to be next week.
Right.
This COVID-19 and all of the stuff that has come out, it's really been a roller coaster.
Yeah. Do you see any hope, though, that will we still be in this mass incarceration mode? Do you see that lasting?
Things are shifting, things are changing. And, I have to have hope. You have to have hope. When we don't have hope, then what happens?
Yes.
People perish when they don't have hope.
Have hope. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I as I said before, I was so happy that you were in Albany, and the fact that you reached out and left in the hands of women in the jail, your
Yeah,
book, which
yeah,
which was inspirational.
yeah.
And I think that's wonderful that you were able to do that.
Well, Alice, what happened is that I printed 18,000 books
Mm,
just for women in prisons.
mm,
And everywhere I went, one of the conditions of me going there was that I visited a prison. And wherever I was going to speak, I asked that person to put me in contact with someone at the local prison. And I went into the prisons and I did book readings and
mhm.
I signed books and I left books. I did book readings just like I did with the free world. And I felt like when I wrote the book, it took off. But I felt like the most important person to read this book was the women inside of prisons.
Mhm.
So I went all over the nation, um, speaking about the book and stopping in prisons and sometimes multiple prisons in each state. So I visited 30 prisons. I visited 30 states and 46 prisons within about a 14, 15-month period.
Mm.
I stayed in the air. And what came out of that, Alice, is that I created this safe housing model that people are replicating our homes in California all over the nation. So right now we're in 15 states. We have 17 homes that have replicated, and it's called SAFE, Sisterhood Alliance for Freedom and Equality.
Mm.
And so I've held since that book tour, I've held 2 trainings down here in California, and I've helped 17 people start homes for these women who are coming out of prison, coming out of jails. Because one of the things I know that is, if we don't have a place to come to when we're released,
Exactly.
we're gonna go back. We're gonna be pushed into the same conditions that sent us to prison. So my hope is that every little town and every little city where women are coming back to, that they'll have a place to go. And again, is it all my responsibility? No, it's not all my responsibility, but I can give it a good start and hope that it takes off from there.
And I think you've done that. Not only are you, an inspiration for people inside the facility and outside, but you've also allowed other people in our community to take more of a serious look at the issues around women who are incarcerated, because they have some unique issues and problems that we rarely visit uh, because they make up, in terms of numbers, a
Yeah,
small percentage of the population inside prison. So it's been very difficult to draw this country's attention towards
right.
those issues.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons that I was that I was inspired or compelled to write the book, because when you talk about mass incarceration, women are left out of it.
Mhm.
But women are the fastest growing segment of the
Exactly.
prison system. When the man goes to jail, the woman stays in contact. She brings the children.
Mhm.
When he comes home, she's there waiting for him. But when a woman goes to jail, everything unravels.
Absolutely.
Children are put in the system. The man goes off and finds another woman,
Mhm.
and
Housing.
when she comes home, there's nothing for her.
There's nothing, not even a
There's
house.
nothing. Everything's lost. Not a house, not an ID, not a nothing.
Right.
So I think this safe housing network will allow our nation to see a solution to recidivism, a solution to providing safety in our community, a solution to recognizing the humanity and the dignity of the women who are coming, that are being released from incarceration.
Mm-hmm. Just getting rid of that stigma is a real problem, you know, and it affects how they come back into the community.
Yeah, and I think that speaks back to healing, people taking the time and the interest to heal their own thoughts and belief systems, because just because a woman or a person is incarcerated doesn't mean that they're undeserving, that they're not worthy. It just doesn't. You know, so it's not about that person, it's about the person and how they're thinking about that person. So I tell women, girl, walk with your head high.
Mm-hmm.
You know, girls, you know, know your purpose. You know, that doesn't define you. Don't let it define your future.
We're so happy to have you as someone who understands and has given so much to all of our communities. One last question. Are you going to write another book?
Oh my God. So I don't know, you know, I'm trying to pass off the leadership within the agency to some younger folks, because you know, I don't want to be an old executive director that has outlived my time and my usefulness in that space. So if I get this transition going on, then I can sit back and I can think about what next. What I have done is I've begun, when COVID hit and I had to stay in the house, I created a garden. So see my squash?
Oh, yeah. Hey, we got something in common. You know, I'm a gardener too. Yeah,
I'm a gardener.
I picked this morning. I have some orange tomatoes and purple tomatoes on the counter. But you know, I just want to kick back and kind of regroup and see what is the next iteration for Susan Burton.
Yeah,
that's great.
So I don't know if it's a book. I don't know quite what it is, but
whatever you decide to do, we need you.
Yes. Oh yeah. It's going to be for the good of the world.
Okay.
Yes. And we're all gardeners. Alice and I talk about gardening regularly. So
yeah.
Yes. Anyway, I want to thank Dr. Alice Green, Susan Burton for this very illuminating conversation, particularly Susan's message about it's everyone's responsibility. She's not going to take this on, you know, everyone do their part. Message of hope and a deep healing. Those things were really powerful. And I really appreciate this conversation being part of our symposium, The Time for Reckoning. Thank you very much for making this time for us, Susan.
Hey, Paul, my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right. See you later. Thanks.
All right.